Hello and welcome to the Autism and Anxiety presentation that's going to be recorded and with our two presenters from Autism Nova Scotia and Halifax and Region Military Family Resource Center. We welcome Jenny Tyler, who's from Autism Nova Scotia. She's the Community Outreach and Events and Membership Coordinator as well. And Melissa Clark, who's the Halifax and Region Military Family Resource Center Director of Inclusion. So welcome and thank you for listening in. I'd like to introduce you first to Jenny. So Jenny, would you like to say a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you for joining us. My name is Jenny Tyler from Autism Nova Scotia. Currently I've been working with Autism Nova Scotia for around 4 years. And one point of interest is I do also have a son who is 15. He also has autism and co-conferring conditions as well, which we'll talk about in this presentation.
Thank you. And Melissa, welcome to the session. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm so glad we have this opportunity to present this information. Like Margaret said, I'm the Director of Inclusion for the Halifax and Region Military Family Resource Center. I've been with the MFRC for about 10 years in a couple of different capacities, but one of the biggest things I enjoy doing, of course, is helping our families and getting them connected. And I have a 13-year-old daughter who has a few challenges of her own, but I also love to knit, so that's my thing.
Thank you. We're going to start with a moment of mindfulness, and this is a great tool. Everything we say and do for a reason. This is a great tool to have in your toolbox. So we're going to ask everybody to mute, and we'll put the recording on. And the recording is taking just a minute. Be patient with me. We'll try this one more time. Gotta love technology. Here we go. Hope you weren't driving during that time. It's just nice to be recentered.
Perfect. So, Margaret, do you think you would read what anxiety is, please?
I'm happy to do so. So what is anxiety? Well, anxiety or extreme apprehension and worry is a normal reaction to a stressful situation. In some cases, however, worry becomes excessive or chronic and can cause sufferers to dread everyday situations. My anxieties have anxiety, said Charlie Brown.
Thank you. So anxiety is an emotion which usually involves an element of worry and fear. It's a state of mind, but it can also affect our thoughts, behaviors, and physical reactions in our body. So although anxiety can be unpleasant, it is actually an evolutionary survival mechanism. So when we find ourselves in a dangerous or stressful situation, anxiety helps us by preparing our body to either run away or fight back. This is known as the fight versus flight response. And although anxiety can help us survive, it can start to become a problem when we use the fight versus flight response when there really is no need. Anxiety is natural and helpful in dangerous or stressful situations, but does become a problem when we experience anxiety when we're not in those dangerous or stressful situations, or we're in the fight or flight long after the dangerous and stressful situation has passed. So we have various different things that anxiety can present itself in your loved ones. Melissa, do you know of any with your background, of any anxiety signs that you've seen?
I used to have a little guy in one of our programs, a little bit older, and he did have some extreme anxieties, and some of his anxieties came out as socially inappropriate behaviors. One of those was his skin felt dry to him all the time, so he would lick his hands. And of course, what happens when you lick your hands, they dry and they feel even drier. So he was constantly having his fingers in his mouth, licking and rubbing his hands, which of course is not something that's socially acceptable. People don't want to be touching you if you have saliva all over your hands. So unfortunately, sometimes those anxiety reactions can become socially isolating too. So it kind of compounds everything.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll investigate some more signs and symptoms later on in the presentation, but that's a really great example. Thank you, Melissa. So moving on to our next slide, what can anxiety look like? And you can see on this slide there's lots and lots of different things that anxiety can look like. Some of us feel irritable because we didn't get a good night's sleep, but it's also a sign of anxiety when you pair it with lots of different things as well. Margaret, I know you had a question on this slide.
Yeah, so when you look at, easily distracted, insomnia, sense of dread, short of breath, irritability, impatience, headache, restlessness, thirst, muscle aches, lethargy, stomach ache, dry mouth, poor concentration, sweating, feeling on edge. Hopefully one person won't have all of these at the same time. We're all unique, of course. The one that surprises me the most, though, Jenny, is the excessive thirst. I didn't realize that was part of anxiety. Would that be Melissa, another reason why your client was licking his hands so much? He was thirsty?
I think for that particular person, it was the dry skin. It was so, and then it just kind of goes into excessive thirst then, because his mouth is always dry because he's trying to create saliva. So it just really compounds itself, so they just kind of build on it. That one was new for me too. I didn't realize that could be a symptom of anxiety as well.
So let me share. So excessive thirst can actually result because under stress your body is wanting to increase the blood flow. And so one way to do this is to make you thirsty so that you drink. So it's trying to increase your liquid capacity so that you can produce more blood to get round, because your heart's pounding, and there's all these different things going on. So that's one of the reasons that excessive thirst is there. These symptoms would be uncomfortable to each of us, but imagine now having any of these symptoms would feel to someone with ASD. How can the feeling of being smothered or a pounding heart be explained and understood by someone whose autism impacts their ability to identify and understand emotions when they are calm, let alone in this fearful and anxious state? Their difficulty comprehending feelings and symptoms can lead to complete exacerbation, which leads to more potential disruption in their lives. Remember, for some individuals with ASD, these feelings associated with anxiety are hard for them to put into words. Emotions and feelings are difficult to express. So if we go on to the next slide, we've got anxiety and autism. So people with autism can experience anxiety more intensely and more often than others. You've got social anxiety, or a fear of new people and new situations, social situations. And generally, social anxiety is reported to be especially common among people with autism. So we're going to click on to the next slide. Research has shown that anxiety levels are particularly high in most people with autism, and any small trigger may be enough to produce a very severe stress reaction. So if we look at these situations that we've put on the slide, you think about fire alarm. So if you're in, say, work, you know that if the fire alarm goes off, your heart rate might go up. You know exactly what to do. There's the procedure, and you follow it. So although your heart's racing and you're a little bit anxious because you don't know if it's real, if you're going to miss the deadline, if you've got your purse with you, all that kind of thing, you know what to do, and you can come down of that state of anxiety. Now imagine if you're on the doctor's table in the middle of help me out here.
An exam, the middle of
the examination. Thank you. So if you're on the doctor's table in the middle of an examination and the fire alarm goes off, and you know you don't know what the procedure is when there's a fire alarm and you're laying on a doctor's table. So your heart rate may then go up, and you may have other signs of anxiety there. So it's very different. This small trigger can produce stress reactions. There are different things as well. So we have deployments can cause anxiety for those with autism. The reunion after being deployed, postings, going to a new school, and going on a long trip. So you may also have the question, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And I have the answer to that, or help guide you in some other slides. But these are all things that cause anxiety. Looking at some lovely beautiful picture. Isn't that lovely? So this picture is to emphasize that a ripple effect where a small trigger can produce a big stress reaction. So imagine I've just thrown a stone into this calm water, and think of that stone as we're going on a trip. So its ripple effects are we there yet? Will the food okay? What do I wear? How will we get there? How long will it take? What can I do there? Can you see? So the stone is we're going on the trip, and the ripple effects are all of the anxiety that's coming. And I think, Melissa, do you have an example?
Well, one of those, of course, would be for our military families, a big one can be deployment. So deployment would be the stone, but the ripple effects from a deployment are a lot of those ones from your trip, example. So when's mommy or daddy coming back? Are they coming back? Who's going to take me to school? How am I going to get to swim class? How am I going to, that whole how, why? Are they coming back? When are they coming back? It's just compounded because, one, the family has missing part of their routine, who helps with that routine, but the other one can be, like, you know, the whole anxiety that typically we see with deployment is all those out of sight, out of mind. So they're out of sight depending how old they are. Are they coming back? What's it going to be like when they come back? And then, of course, the reverse of that is returning. So when they come back, how do we reintegrate them into our routines? And how does that affect your kids who are on the spectrum, who are already in that state of anxiety? Deployments can run for any amount of time, but can take a really long time to try and not be anxious, and to try and help your family be not anxious all the time.
Those are great points. And also to remember that we're anxious ourselves as parents or caregivers. So the more our loved ones are coming at us with these questions or showing displays of anxiety, we become more anxious ourselves. It's very difficult to live with. So going on to the next slide, autism and anxiety, so transition and changes. Margaret, would you read that first part, please?
Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? When a phrase is being repeated, it is likely that they are seeking a predictable response from you. They're not trying to annoy you.
Now, as a parent, hands down, I can tell you that I get this when it's happening to me. But in signs of stresses, repeated questions and phrases are a way to seek that predictable response from you. and you should try and offer a reassuringly predictable response. So, are we there yet? Almost. Are we there yet? When we get to the next set of traffic lights, we'll turn left and we'll be there. So having a predictable answer that's reassuring. You can also support the person by offering them plenty of time to prepare for the transition between activities. So depending on the individual, you could give them, we'll be there in 15 minutes, we'll be there in, someone used a great example, in 3 funny videos, if there's a video player in the car or on the iPad. You can use a timer. You can use that in my house, in my car, we use the GPS. It tells you when we're going to reach the destination. Following through is very important. So make sure you follow through. So first we'll go to McDonald's and then we're going to Granny's. Don't stop at Walmart on the way. You can support these before you need someone to start a new task, rather than expecting them to make the transition straight away. You can do the first and then this. Deflect and redirect is also helpful. So if asking the same phrase, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Get them to look at the GPS, get them to read a map, or get them to point out some landmarks along the way which will help them understand what they are. Lisa, do you have anything on this?
One of the things you can always come to the MFRC as well is if you're looking for resources or you're looking to build some, like a social story. So if you are going on something that's a little different, we can help you build those social stories. What those are books that we make that are very personalized. We try to use actual pictures of the participant or the person doing the thing that they're finding anxious. So one of the examples that I have is one of our kids was starting school and he was going to be taking the bus for the first time. So that was incredibly anxious for him because the whole thing was just brand new. So what we were able to do, we're working with the school as well, is get some actual pictures of him with the teacher he was going to be with at our before and after school program, waiting for the bus. And then it worked out so great that the actual bus we figured he was going to be taking, we did a kind of mock-up of him, the bus coming to our building, the bus leaving our building, and then moving on to what it looked like when what would happen when the bus got to school and the person who would be coming to get him off the bus. We built a couple other things into that whole routine. And then we were able to work it backwards to what it looked like when he came back to the center. And then some really great, really simple sentences to go with it, with a couple of things that just to make it really positive. And they were able to work with him over the summer to really get him to the point where this was an okay thing to happen because it was such a big change. And the book was really great because it's laminated so he could take it with him. And that was something we really found, and I found before, is if they can actually hold on to it, sometimes it makes a big difference too.
Perfect. And again, if you're not a military member, we know that this presentation is going to go out to a wide audience. Lean on the resources that you do have. So your local autism society may be able to help you. Here in Nova Scotia, it's Autism Nova Scotia, and we have 8 chapters around the province. You can ask the school, daycare, so many different places can support you. And we'll get onto that in some of our other slides. So, ordinary anxiety is a feeling that may generally come and go, but it shouldn't interfere with a person's everyday life. And it's also reported that if anxiety is left untreated, it can continue to get worse. So what are the signs to look for in your child with autism? There's self-harm, so that could be banging heads, it could be biting, it could be scratching, picking at something, pulling hair. More angry outbursts, refusal to go to school or daycare or work, withdrawing from friends and family. We know ourselves when we call it a duvet day, we don't want to go out, we don't want to talk to anybody. When that becomes more often than not, that's a sign. Avoiding an object or a situation. So, for example, if social media were to make someone very anxious because of a comment that someone said, they may refuse to go on their iPad or their computer because they're trying to avoid going anywhere near social media, and therefore the object would be the iPad or computer. They may be constantly seeking reassurance, so that same question over and over again, do you love me, do you love me, do you love me, do you love me? Showering or not, now that seems a bit odd, I know, however, there's method in my madness. So it could be in some of our, we've seen in some of our individuals with autism, the avoidance. So if you're saying that they have to go for a job interview or they're going to a party, but they can't go as they are, they have to shower and get changed, they may actually avoid the shower. Because if in their minds, we've heard from some individuals that we work with or I've met, if they shower, then they have to go out and follow through. If they stay unshowered and in their pajamas, they don't have to leave the house. So it's that avoidance. Individuals on the spectrum with anxiety may show some or all of these signs, as well as agitation, aggression, increased obsessiveness, and increased rigidity. It's going to look different for everyone, and in the case of an anxiety disorder, an individual may feel fear most or all of the time, and it may be intense. And paired with autism, you may start to see more behaviors and avoidance of everyday activities. But here's the thing, some of these signs can also be an everyday occurrence with your loved one with autism, so it's very tricky. But what I will say is that you do know your loved one, and if you start to see some of these things escalating, or you just feel in your gut that these are different, then go with your gut feeling and go with that.
We had a client on the other day, and they were talking about self-harm. And what do? How do you protect them?
It's very difficult. It's keeping them safe, redirecting if you can, getting to know what the triggers are is something, and don't be afraid to go to your doctor or call the specialist and actually say, this is becoming an issue, I'm worried. Going to the local emergency if you're really concerned, but talking to the team as well, seeing if it's something that's happening at school as well, and pulling on those resources there. Melissa, can you think of any?
I think you pretty much hit them all, and like you were saying, if it's something that's really it's really concerning, there's always calling your mental health crisis team as well. The numbers are always out there because they can be of assistance too. In Nova Scotia and Halifax primarily that I'm aware of, there's a mobile mental health crisis team as well that everybody has access to.
That's right.
So let's look at the mental health continuum, and that's where when we're in the red, you just want to keep them safe, like we were saying, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so the mental health continuum model is something the military family resource centers use a lot, and then we use it on a lot of different things to help families kind of measure their self. Like you see, so green is healthy and red is ill, so we always want to try and keep people in the green, but we also understand that going yellow and orange, it's going to happen. And what we really try to do is provide families with strategies to get back to that healthy state. Healthy mental health is you're doing good. You got to get a sense of humor. You got some normal sleep patterns going. You're physically and socially active. Your behavior is socially acceptable. That kind of stuff for the most part. You're confident. You're not using alcohol or medications or gambling to access that kind of stuff. So you're able to. You're good. So one of the things that we really like to have families, and I'm not going to read them all, but is recognizing when you're going yellow. So you can recognize your limits. You can take breaks, get enough rest, food, exercise, reduce the barriers to help seeking, and you can really work to identify and resolve some problems as early as possible. There's really a lot of things. So if you can really try and recognize those, and then you can go, oh, okay, so I need to do some things to try and get me back healthy. When you're going into the orange and to the red is really when you really need to talk to someone else. We see a lot of anxiety, hopelessness, all those really troubling things that families can go to in individuals. And it's really tuning into your own signs of distress, making self-care a priority. And Jenny's really a big advocate for that one too. Get help sooner, not later. Try and maintain those social contacts. Don't withdraw. And of course, when somebody's into the red, that's when we're really seeking professional assistance to try and work through all these really, things just seem to escalate. Once you're there, typically families have a really hard time getting back out and they really need assistance. So it's really kind of trying to gauge and be aware of your own health to try and get through that. The MFRCs also offer stuff on this. So if you're more interested in finding out more on how to work on it, you can always contact your local MFRC.
Perfect. So our next one is the zones of regulation. So this is one that may be familiar to some of our individuals and families. Many schools, daycares, some workplaces use them. And again, it's following a bit like Melissa's mental health continuum model. The zones of regulation is to be in, ideally, the green, calm, happy, okay, ready to learn, ready to go. This could move to blue or yellow, silly or frustrated or sad or bored. And then that's when you try and bring some strategies in to get them back down to the two colors below. When they're in red, where they're mad, angry, and yelling and could be hit, that's when you need to keep them safe. You need to stand back, keep them safe, and follow through with whatever safety plan you have, because we've missed the steps prior to be able to get them back down. And you'll see different versions of this around, and if your child's in school, you can speak to the school about it. There's lots of great resources online. The zone regulation is also in our library system as well. So it's a great tool. It's used differently by everyone. My example of his cards have pictures of animals in, because that's what he likes more than anything, animals. So it's different for everyone, but it's a great tool to know of and possibly look into to see if you can utilize it.
I have a question for you, actually for Melissa too. Jenny and Melissa, are your organizations, the Military Family Resource Center and Autism Nova Scotia, able to help with the safety plan?
We can give some resources and some direction, but it's individual to every family. So where we're a not-for-profit and we don't have huge manpower resources, we can certainly direct, but we would certainly encourage families to go to team members like MFRC or their family doctor or mental health team.
Yeah.
Melissa, do you help with the safety plan?
We're kind of the same a little bit as Autism Nova Scotia, so we can help a little bit, but to make sure that the pictures and everything else really works for the family, we always suggest talking to their care providers, whether they're working with EIBI, their autism team at the IWK, just to make sure that what's being put into place is actually going to be workful for the family. With the actual building it, if it came that for whatever reason that care team can't produce them, that's something we could certainly look into to see if we could do it. It's not something we typically do all the time, but we do work with our families on a case-by-case basis to see what we can do to help support them.
Wonderful. You both have so many great resources. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, so autism and anxiety. Margaret, would you mind just reading the first paragraph, please?
Absolutely. So although anxiety is not considered a core feature of autism spectrum disorder, anxiety disorders are the most common comorbid conditions in these patients. Because of the great impact on the course of the disorder, recognizing anxiety and treating it properly is particularly important for the well-being of these patients. Can you explain comorbid in better terms?
I can, and that quote actually comes from the psychology, certain psychology website, which we can cite on the presentation after. But comorbid, we try and use co-concurring, but comorbid is a medical term. Co-concurring condition is we see a lot. So autism would generally have a co-concurring condition. So we know that males with autism can also present with epilepsy. Females can too, but that's a co-concurring condition. Anxiety can be a co-concurring condition. So autism is the prime or the main condition, and then anxiety comes in and is a co-concurring condition. So that's what comorbid stroke co-concurring means. But where can you go to get help? So going to a workshop in Nova Scotia, we have community health teams, and they actually do workshops on anxiety. So although it's not specific to autism, you can go and learn some great tools. Going to your family doctor and asking for a referral to mental health. If you don't have a family doctor, check in with MFRC, who can do short-term counselling and referrals to institutes and organisations like Strongest Family. There is also, if you call Autism Nova Scotia or any of our chapters, we can direct you to how to get on the list for a doctor. Talking to the school team, they may be noticing things too, or they may not be noticing things because they have more than just a loved one in their class. So if you're talking to the team and then brainstorming ideas for how to get around it. Talking to coaches, so many of our families are with Special Olympics, or you may have someone on a soccer team or hockey team. Talk to the coaches, see if they've noticed anything, or see if they can have a chat with them. We always say it takes a village to raise a child, and that's never more true when you have a child with diverse needs. So ask other parents of children with autism, where have they gone for help? What tips and strategies have they used? And Margaret, I believe there's a special page for military families.
Yes, we're going to share it shortly.
Okay, perfect. Connecting with your local autism organisation for resources. But the one that's really, really important is self-care. Because there's that whole thing that you can't, on an airplane, if you have the gas mask come down, you breathe in first before you help someone else. That being that if you don't have enough oxygen going around your body, you're not going to be able to help someone else. So self-care is really important. So that takes us to this one. So what do you do to take care of yourself? We already know one thing that Melissa does from the very first slide. She knits. That's something that she does that can take away. Is that right, Melissa?
Absolutely. It's I find it very therapeutic.
Whereas I would find it really frustrating. Margaret, walking the dog, crafts. For me, it's calling a friend and saying, I need to go and get coffee. And that's my self-care time. And sometimes just going out to Sobeys or a supermarket is all you need, just time to breathe. Bath with the door closed is a huge one, especially when there's chocolate involved. So on the bottom of this slide, you see think it, ink it, and do it. So what do I mean about that? When you have an appointment from the hospital come in, and the first thing you do is you go to your calendar and you write it in. Are you likely to say, oh, you know what, I just don't feel like going today. I'm just going to call in and say I'm not going to go. You don't do that. It's on your calendar. You know it's important, so you're going to do it. So the idea behind Think It, Ink It, Do It is if you schedule time in your calendar and actually ink it down, research shows that you are more likely to do it. So schedule once a week, having a bath, me time, coffee, whatever it is, and make sure that you do it because you are worthy and you are important.
And the other thing, too, is if you're not looking after yourself, how can you look after somebody else? You must fit your own oxygen mask on first and then breathe to help others.
Exactly. And you have to remember that most of us are not just looking after ourselves and one person with autism. We're looking after animals or pets and partners and siblings and grandparents. You're not just looking after one or two people. You're part of so many people's lives. So looking after yourself is really important.
Laugh from the belly if you can.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, so our next slide is some other tools that we've oh, I didn't have this one in. Oh, okay. Some more helpful tips and how we can help. Melissa, would you like to read this one, please?
Certainly. So some useful strategies are to identifying what makes a child feel anxious, followed by visual supports and other techniques to prepare them for stressful situations. Relaxation techniques. There is evidence that modified cognitive behavior therapy can be effective. Medication may also play a role in helping some people.
Perfect. So anxiety is common for many people on the autism spectrum, and it can cause difficulties in everyday activities. We've learned all about that, such as going to school or work. Feeling anxious can also make it harder for some children to learn, so in school, or if you have an adult who's just starting a new job, if they're really anxious, it's really going to have some impact possibly on learning the skills that they need to have in that new role that they're going to.
Jenny and Melissa, I had a friend whose child was on the has autism. Sorry, and what they did was they took sticky notes and they put them on their bedroom wall, and the sticky notes identified a problem, and then they had a different color for all the things that the person could do, the child could do to address that problem. So these were the steps. And so the whole wall was covered in sticky notes so that if ever an issue happened, they would go to the wall and say, okay, here's the issue. Now what do we need to do to fix this? And I thought that was really brilliant.
Yeah, that's perfect. And again, everyone's individual. So some may find on the spectrum may find that overwhelming and too much. Some may absolutely love it. Some you may have to use visuals for. So it's using your knowledge of your loved one, so you know what helps them best.
You know your child best.
Yeah, and what their skill set is.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
And remembering that as much as we're using the word child, autism is a lifelong condition. It won't go away, but all of these tools that we put in place, great gains will be made because we're putting some interventions in to help them.
So we can put, you know your loved one best.
Yep, that would be perfect.
Great. Excellent.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Other helpful tips, you're welcome. There's lots and lots of resources out there. Melissa, have you tried the breathing, any breathing exercises?
Yeah, so we've done square breathing, which is a really great thing for everybody, really. There's different techniques, and it's really looking at, like, you know, some people do the in through your nose, out through your mouth, in through your nose, try and blow out a candle, and it's really getting people to think about actually what they're doing as part of it. I know when we've done it before that some nurses actually use square breathing as well when they're working with their patients. So it's something that's really great and really helpful for a lot of people across the board.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be square breathing. There's lots of different breathing techniques. Lazy gate breathing is another one. What some individuals and what my son likes to do is when he's breathing before he starts, he puts his hand over his heart to feel his heartbeat because it's normally racing before he starts. And by the end of the breathing session, he noticed that it actually slows down. So he has a very physical reaction that he can feel by doing the breathing. So again, you know your loved one, and finding the right thing. You know, square breathing may not be for everyone. I know it's not for my son, but there are other breathing exercises, and there's lots of YouTube videos that you can look up and reach out for resources too, for all the other things that, you know, MFRC, autism societies that you can ask for resources from. Another one that I've used personally is Connected Kids. What drew me to this was that it was specifically for autism. So it's one of the websites that I use personally. They have some great resources. You can sign up to be on their mailing list. Some of their resources you can purchase, but there are a lot of free resources. So that's something that I use personally. And again, just to show you that there are things out there. So research, look it up and see what works for you. And you may not find the right thing straight away, but hopefully you will find something to help and adapt.
Can we take a tour to show you the Teach Children Medication website?
Absolutely, Margaret.
All right, so your screen may go blue for just a moment. There we go. And whoops. All right, here's the Teaching Children Meditation, www.teachchildrenmeditation.com. And look, there's a great, excellent area here for you to subscribe to a free newsletter with tips and special offers. But this is the one that we wanted to share with you, this resources tab. Look at all the different resources that are available. There's books, there's special needs, there's CDs, there's mindfulness, there's free stuff. We all love free stuff. If I click on there, there's just a wealth of information in this particular site that you can find. The other thing that I wanted to share with you before we move back to the presentation is a special needs group for Canadian Armed Forces families specifically. So if you Google in your Facebook page, Special Needs Besoins Spécial, there's 136 members, and we're always looking for more, and it's particularly for Canadian Armed Forces families who have special needs like autism and more. So this is where we advertised this workshop that we had, and now we're doing the recording for it. There's all kinds of great resources and information, and more importantly, you can share with other people as they may have expertises or ideas that you hadn't thought of. So now I'm going to stop sharing.
That's wonderful, thank you. So there are resources out there, and again, it takes a village. Don't forget to ask your friends and other friends. And also asking, there are some really great autistic advocates who are a wealth of knowledge, so don't be afraid to connect. So Autism Nova Scotia, we are so proud that we have so many autistic advocates. They have a great wealth of knowledge, so don't be afraid to reach out and ask. They may be able to tell you what works for them, and it may be the aha that you need. So don't forget the autistic advocates as well, adults on the spectrum who live with autism every day and have got some great coping strategies. So what else can you do? We've already explained about working with your child or loved one's team, so school or daycare, help get them to create some strategies. Work also, if your loved one is at work, speak to the team if they're being job shadowed or if you have an inclusion person in the workplace. Talking to the doctor or specialist about anxiety attacks So it could be that medication or different therapies may be offered. Again, it's very individual and it's not a fix-all. Take relaxing breaks with your child and loved one as often as you can. So not only is it good to ground and reset yourself, a bit like we did at the beginning of this session, but if you do it with them regularly, not only are you getting something from it, but you're also modeling and giving them confidence in the exercise. So doing it together is really good because A, you're resetting yourself, B, you're modeling and giving them the confidence to do it on their own. So that's really important. Melissa, can you think of anything else?
I think at this point it really is trying to build those with your child or your dependent. Like you said, it's so great to try and reset yourself along and teaching your kids or your dependents that it's okay and that we can do it together and they have support is so huge.
Yeah.
So this past week you had a connection, Melissa, at the Military Family Resource Center with other families, and you do that regularly. So where can people find out about those kind of meetings?
Yes, so we have, it's called Share and Support, and we do it in conjunction with Autism Nova Scotia. Right now we're doing about once a month. We alternate our sites. So this past one we had on Thursday was at our Halifax site. And what that is caregivers can come in. We always have some cool things. Sit and really connect with other families who are living with the military lifestyle along with autism or any other complex or different need. And it's really just a great way to connect, feel like you're not alone, because you're not. You get a treat, and you get to spend some time with Autism Nova Scotia, and we usually have a little mini session as well. So the last one we did was on posting and ASD. So we really try to touch on things that are really pertinent to our military families, but there's a lot of information there for anybody really who may have different needs. A lot of this stuff is just really great advice and really great resources for anybody.
So somebody then can sign up for the weekly newsletter from Halifax MFRC by just going to the site, www.halifaxmfrc.ca, and that's where they would learn about different activities and maybe sign up for the weekly newsletter. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You can also check out our Facebook page and also our website. There's a calendar there, and it's usually our share and support is under the Children's Services, Children's Activities, Children and Parents. And we have our next ones coming up in March, and then we'll have another one in May.
Wonderful. And your website is halifaxmfrc.ca?
Yes.
Super. Great. Thank you.
Also, Margaret, you can have, with Autism Nova Scotia, you can join our membership and send out monthly newsletters with this information as well, or you can follow our social media, or our website would be a good tool as well. So remembering that we have the chapters around the province, we have lots of different groups around that do different things. So there's a wealth of knowledge just by being able to follow us on social media or joining our website.
Wonderful. We're going to give the email addresses for both Jenny and Melissa shortly.
Wonderful. Okay, we've made it. We've reached the end.
So this is a huge thank you to Melissa, and this is her email address, melissa.clark@forces.gc.ca, and she can give you any information about some of the programs that they offer. This is Jenny Tyler, jtyler@autismns.ca, and she can also give you a wealth of information on the programs, on the events that go on with Autism Nova Scotia. It's really important to reach out, and we're so thankful that we had this opportunity to connect with you and to record this great information for you. Don't forget that you are the person who knows your child best. Join social media and share your experience of today's session. Don't forget to hashtag Autism Nova Scotia. Join the Facebook page, the Children with Special Needs that we saw earlier. You can join the Autism Nova Scotia and the MFRC Facebook pages as well. Please reach out, connect with Autism Nova Scotia and your MFRC at any time because we are there for you. We are not an island. Join Autism Nova Scotia as a member. Don't forget there's also Strongest Families Institute, and we can send you the recording of that. And that is a wonderful program that is free to Canadian Armed Forces families for children 3 to 17 dealing with anxiety. And they actually offer the course, the coaching one-on-one from the comfort of your home over telephone or Skype. So ask the MFRC about Strongest Families Institute. Remember, you are not alone, and just breathe and enjoy the self-care that you are so deserving of. Thank you so much. Anything you wanted to add, Jenny or Melissa?
For me, it's thank you to Melissa. You know, we have this partnership with the MFRC in Halifax and Shearwater. You know, it may change and look different as time goes on, but we're both a resource and we do work closely together. Our teams work closely together, so please do reach out. And thank you so much to you, Margaret. You're a fantastic facilitator and it makes it so easy.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. Enjoy your afternoon, and thank you so much for listening. Anything to add, Melissa?
Just the same thing as Jenny, really. Thank you so much, Jenny, for all the work that you do for our families, and also for Margaret for providing us this opportunity. And like always, if you ever have any questions or concerns or anything, please contact your local MFRC, and we'll do our best to help you with whatever your needs are.
Thank you.
Thank you.